They're the ones who were responsible for the water that made the frogs gay. The guy got hate for curing blindness. So obviously he's going to have hate for having a transgender friend. You know, we're ready to get started. I should probably wear a bra. Be right back. Okay, welcome back. What is this stain? A freaking crunchy. What is up, everybody? How are you doing? How you doing? I'm still going good. I'm recovering from surgery. It's getting better every day. It's still a little bit weird, especially like, I don't know, still talking kind of feels weird. There's still soreness over here, and plus there's like this is kind of feeling like numb and like swollen, like it hurts. And of course my hair is still growing back on the incision line. I can make an illusion, make it look like I didn't have a surgery. No matter how you slice it, it's going to be obvious. Okay, so you just lean into it. Just roll with it. And that's basically the theme of today's video, is we're going to go over this whole thing. Tyson, I believe, didn't know about this person until this happened, until this drama. Yeah. Like, stay tuned. You guys already know what's up, don't you? I know you. I know what set you off. You're on social media. I know everything that sets you off. You're in good hands. Drama. So, if you don't know who this person is, first of all, you probably know who mrbeast is, the #1 YouTuber. But if you don't know this other person, Tyson, is a friend of mrbeast and is in all of his videos. Comes out as having been undergoing HRT, which is a huge part of transitioning, from male to female. This person uses any pronouns. I guess even he himself is using he pronouns a lot. So I'm just going to respect pronouns. Me personally, I know from experience, the very beginnings of transitioning, especially if you're new to socially transitioning. For me, when I started HRT, I had already tried previously when I first came out as trans, probably around 2008 or so. So that was quite a while ago. So I've already had a lot of time to kind of like let that, because I closeted back up after unsuccessfully coming out socially. For reasons that we're going to see in what's going on in this situation. There's a lot of parallels. A lot of trans people can relate to what's going on here. For a lot of people, they've never had to be on this side of the equation of having a trans person in your life. Usually, I think for most people, their interaction with trans people is that they see annoying people on the internet, on Twitter, getting angry at them for misgendering someone or something like that. That's most people's interaction with trans people. They don't really see the non-internet side of it. Unless you're into the whole inspiration kind of side of it, which a lot of people just ignore. But I think for this is a super high profile case of a famous person or a friend of a famous person, but I guess this person was famous in his own right. Of a famous person coming out as... See, here's the thing. This person is saying that that he's undergoing HRT and uses any pronouns. And I think it's important to understand that gender is this kind of thing that fluctuates inside of us, and then eventually it kind of settles on where we're going to land. And then it's about like, okay, well, now that we found it, let's just be happy here. You make a landing, and then you kind of just, like in real life, if you've been on like a 10-mile trek, you've had like backpack full of gear on, and then 10 miles you get to a place where you can finally rest, drink water, get some food, coffee, all that kind of stuff. You can just chill. Maybe there's a motel you can take a nap. I don't know. I got distracted myself because now I'm thinking about that, and it sounds awesome. Like just going to a random motel in the middle of nowhere after a 10-mile trek. Oh my God. Oasis. Sweet oasis. I don't think so. But I think for the first time, we're really seeing, like, in the public, as it's happening, what goes down for every single transgender person and their families and friends when we start HRT and when we mainly when we start socially transitioning. Because for a lot of people, and it looks like this is the case, I'm going to let Chris speak for himself on this one, but from what I can tell, it's been about a few months on HRT before he came out. A lot of people, they might feel more comfortable coming out as HRT starts to take place because you feel more comfortable inside of your body. That's mainly what HRT does for us, at least in my case. When I started HRT, even like the first day of starting it, I was happier than I had ever been previously. And that's because like I knew that I was going in the right direction, and that alone, even if you discount every single additional thing that happens from HRT and from transitioning, which are plenty, there's plenty of stuff to talk about besides this single factor, but this single factor alone should be enough for people, is that even if all these transphobes were correct, and even if this was all some kind of delusion, so what? This is the treatment. This is helping us. Why do you want us to be in pain? Okay, so even if all that other stuff was delusional, which it's not, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that every single part of transgender affirming healthcare is to our benefit. Like, it helps. Okay, and we know it helps. Like, it's proven through time and time again of people just finally getting what they know they need and then being like, cool, now I can move on. Hey, let me solve that Rubik's Cube. Oh God, that Rubik's Cube is really hard, isn't it? Because guess what? The Rubik's Cube didn't change. But everybody who used the Rubik's Cube changed a little bit. And that's generally what happens. Like when a person in your life transitions, I know this from the person of being the person who's transitioned. So I don't really know what it's like for everyone else involved. But I do know from my own experience that it is a really freaking awkward transition. Okay, it's going to be awkward. There's no two ways around it. Okay, you're going to be awkward. That's what transitioning is. You're transitioning from something. It's going to be awkward, but it passes. This is reality. The reality is that you live your life every day, and and all you could do is do the best with what you got. That's what everybody else on the planet does. And trans people are no different, but for us, we got gender dysphoria. Woo, bling bling. Aren't you excited? You're a human. You just happen to have gender dysphoria. That's your one flavor that you got. It's not your one flavor, but it's like the flavor of like something that makes your life complicated. Okay, like some people it might be other things which they can stack. So better be careful. Don't start thinking that it couldn't get worse, because it can. Trademark. It can get worse, okay? You could lose a leg. You could get hit by a car. Your car could get hit. You could lose your house. You could lose everything. Okay? So don't think it can't get worse. But it can definitely get worse. But usually they don't stack. I think if there is a God out there, I think, whatever that entity has control over, it's doing the best it can, it looks like. Because it looks like sometimes there's miracles. Me getting gender-affirming treatment is a miracle. The fact that I'm recovering from my facial surgery, which I never thought would ever in a million years be possible, because I didn't even think bottom surgery was possible with financial situation as it is. And now, looking, lo and behold, at the end of the year, I'm going to have a pussy. Isn't that awesome? Pussy power. Let's go. Okay, Rebecca, stop being cringe. That's not gonna happen. Let's get on to the video. I got a few notes for different parts of the video.
The Chris Tyson situation could become a complete disaster for mrbeast brand. However, it may also provide some unique benefits. So let's begin by going over the drama before explaining exactly how this will impact
drama.
the Mr. Beast channel. In mid-2022, fans began to notice that Chris Tyson was changing. In the early days, he represented the quintessential Southern gun and truck loving.
And I think it's important to kind of understand what's going on here. Normally, which is why I think, which is why, you know, it's still a good video, even though it's like, you know, this is still a well-made, I think this video is in bad taste. I think it's fear-mongering. I think it's, but you know, it's no different than any other journalist. Let's be real. Any other journalist would probably be doing worse. So I don't want to pile on Sunny V2 here. I'm sure people have a lot of stuff to say about Sunny V2, good or bad, but I don't really know him too well. I just know the drama. That's all I really know him for. And, you know, I'm going to get back to this point later because, you know, people need to understand this about Mr. Beast and how this is not going to affect his channel at all. And if anything, it's going to positively impact Mr. Beast's channel because now a lot of people in the public space and like in celebrity space, etc., are going to be somehow involving themselves in this. And it's going to get a lot more media attention. But basically, painting this is usually what people who are not used to having trans people in their lives, this is the person they saw. And I'm guessing this is Chris. I'm guessing this is Chris. But, you know, Sunny is talking about Chris here. And this is generally how people see trans people before and after, is they only see this person. They only see this person that's in front of them, the person when they look in the back seat in the car. Oh, yeah, that's Chris. Yeah. Okay. They just accept the person for who they are, which is actually pretty normal. I think we should go back to that. But then somebody says, hey, like I've been struggling with gender dysphoria and I started to HRT a few months ago. And maybe even this conversation happened way before then. So, you know, like, but basically like, hey, like I'm trans and I don't, and you know, and Chris probably said, you know what, any pronouns are good. And then, you know, he started using, he was using he pronouns. So I'm going to use what the person is projecting. And if the person is projecting any pronouns, doesn't seem to have a hang up about pronouns, I feel like I'm more hung up on pronouns than Chris is. So I am obviously very binary as a trans woman. I'm she, her pronouns, but there's plenty of non-binary people out there. And also there's people who are men who undergo HRT and become femboys. That's a thing. And I'm all for that. I want more femboys in the world. I need more trans feminine people with dicks because I'm very attracted to that body type. So I'm very happy that not every trans person is doing what I'm doing because I'm very happy knowing that I'm going to have a vagina. So for me, that's like super amazing. But I want there to be trans women and femboys who are on HRT who have that specific body type that I find yummy. I like that. So I'm glad that there's people out there that are like, you know, not so that are a little bit more fluid about pronouns and about expression. And I'm just, you know, genital dysphoria is a very difficult thing. And the only solution is to either, you know, the non-solution, which is to just accept it, which is not going to be turning out very well for the majority of people. Maybe there's like one person who like climbs a mountain and prays to, you know, a million different, you know, like, you know, spiritual journey kind of thing. You know, maybe. But I'm sure that's like a very minority because most trans people, we end up being forced to wait and see until it gets way better. You know, they basically think it's a phase and they want it to go away because it's easier, as this video will point out, it's much easier to just say, oh, well, this person's obviously delusional. This is the person I know, this meat lover here. That's the person I know. That's who you are. Why are you telling me that you're a person differently than what I already think you are? That's absurd. I know you as this person. It's easier for me to accept you as this person. So you should probably just be that person. I'm angry at you. I'm angry at you for being different than what I want you to be. Why are you making it so difficult for me and your family? Do you see where the slippery slope happens? Like, it just keeps going that direction the more you make it about yourself. But here's the thing, is it's not about you. It's about Chris. It's about this person going through his life and his changes, you know, going from being seen as the dude who I guess was truck loving, you know, like whatever, gun loving, meat loving, meat loving, gun loving, truck loving, I don't know. Like, it's so much easier to see that person that you've built up in your own mind than it is to like accept, hey, this person's coming to me with a very intimate detail about themselves, and that means that they trust me. And why do they trust me? And you can ask them. You can ask them like, hey, like, I don't know how to do this. They don't know how to do it either. And if they, you know, maybe they do. I know how to do it. Basically, you just ready or not, here I come. We're here, we're queer, get used to it. That's the best way. And I know it sucks. Just because it's the best way doesn't mean it's a comfortable way. Okay, people need to get that through their heads. This is a huge part of acceptance. You have to look at reality before you go into gender confirming care. And this is why things are set up the way they are for youth. It's very different than adults for a reason. And it sucks sometimes because sometimes people have to be, if you're forced to go through puberty, that could be a nightmare. If you're not forced to go through puberty, I can imagine that's going to be a lot better than being forced to go through puberty. You know, as somebody who was unfortunately forced to go through male puberty. But, you know, we're a little bit older than we'd like to be. We'd gone through puberty and our bodies changed more than we'd like it to. But there's a path forward, and that's the path that Chris is taking.
Dude. Yet beginning in March 2022, Chris began to display increasingly feminine
22.
traits, making tweets such as, I finally got my nails done at.
And here's the thing, is like, this is super after the fact nitpicking. The fact that you would talk about nails.
Traits.
Like, come on. Like, dudes wear nails. Okay? Like, everybody has nails. Like, so like the fact that you would be grabbing this after the fact, it's like nobody would have really thought about this. Anybody who actually had any kind of problem with somebody having nails, whether they're a guy or a girl, is just like, it's kind of stretch, you know?
Making tweets such as, I finally got my nails done at a nail tech. Additionally, Chris would highlight that his facial appearance had changed significantly since the start of the pandemic.
And you know that too, that's not like, you know, this is also after the fact cherry picking right here, looking at like, okay, well, this could mean anything. And, you know, as Chris says, like, you know, I'm just getting healthy.
Which accompanied another post reading.
And this one too. But I mean, obviously, you know, if you started HRT, your face is going to start to change very quickly. Like 2 months, I think.
Okay, so in 4 different customs, I had to prove...
I mean, because the fat distribution on your face changes. It's just the way estrogen works. You know, it's the way testosterone works in its own way.
I was myself, because I, quote, look nothing like my passport pic, so much that I'm considering updating my passport. Do you see any resemblance?
Now, because I got like a nose job, like I don't know if this is going to be a problem, but if... I might have to replace my driver's license and I had never gotten a passport, so I need to get a passport to begin with. So, you know, now that I've had facial surgery, you know, that's okay. I don't have to redo it, but my driver's license should be fine. Yeah, that's something that, you know, if it becomes a problem, I just deal with it and it's over. You know, these are the kind of things that you deal with when you're transitioning. Like it's just really boring things, like things that nobody wants to talk about because it's just like going to the DMV. Like, come on. Like, most of the stuff about being trans is just like, hey, these changes are happening and here's the reality of these changes. And then it should only matter to the person involved. And then as far as that's concerned, it should only be involved as much as it needs to, because there's so much more in life to be happy and thankful for. And we finally get to experience that once we started getting our gender-affirming treatments.
Prompting replies such as, you went from man to boy. Chris responded by stating, nah, to be honest, I just really started taking my mental health seriously and eating better, yet...
And you know, that's another thing, is that it's not just that you're transitioning gender-related things. Like, you're transitioning yourself because you're a human. And when you're a human, it means that you're going to partake in the things that make you a human. You're going to be doing the things like, you know, there might be something good happening in your life. There might be something sad happening in your life. Maybe nothing is happening except your transition, which means that you can focus on that, which has its ups and downs itself. But it's not the only thing in life that we experience. And so if you like start taking care of your mental health by transitioning, you know, and that's one part of it. Therapy is accompanied, especially if you're getting surgeries. It's required if you're getting surgeries. So if you want surgeries, you know you need them. As I've known, I've needed them since probably 2006 or 2007. And I'm finally getting them. Facial surgery was a huge bonus, and I'm so happy about it. The fact that I am actually starting to feel a little bit more normal, it's almost kind of concerning. Like, I'm like literally like, I'll just be sitting here and all I have are my thoughts, and there's no giant negativity connected to it. Leading up to this facial surgery, I was getting so much extra thoughts. I was going in circles because, I think it's just because knowing that I got there and it was a success, like now I can rest easy, until I get anxiety again, which is going to happen. It's, I think part of dealing with anxiety and mental health is knowing that it's not going to go away. It's just going to happen and you have to deal with it, and you get better at dealing with it, hopefully.
Yet his Twitter photos kept insinuating that Chris was becoming more feminine, with this same kind of look showing up in his Mr.
I don't see. This is all a bit of like I said, this is all a bit of after the fact bullshit, because literally, like, I don't think anyone thought anything other than, hey, it's just Chris with a different hairstyle.
Beast appearances. For example,
I'm pretty sure nobody thought that, like, oh, this person must be trans. Like, I'm sure most people were just like, hey, that's, because most of the time, a normal person, they look at a person and they just accept who the person tells them that they are. And if there's nothing being talked about as far as gender goes, then that's not really something that should be a topic of conversation, because the person themselves didn't even bring it up. So it's just kind of weird when after the fact, you're going and you're digging into these clips and you're just trying to get all these freaking reactions from inherently transphobic audience, because let's be real, and this is basically I guess why this person made the video. I don't think it'll be a nightmare. I think it'll be just fine. And Mr. Beast is like, yeah, this is not a nightmare for us. Chris is our friend. Like, let's just deal with it. But there's, as a YouTuber, Sunny V2 probably does not want to split his audience. And he's probably going to take the easy route, which is to farm transphobia. And that is the easy route. Okay, get better content. It is the easy route, because it's a lot harder to be on the side of trans people. Because if you do that, you're going to have to start banning half your chat. It's a huge divider. And unfortunately, it exists. But I feel like we're getting into a day and age where people are more willing to do the difficult thing, because they know it's the right side of history. Like, come on, like, trans people exist. Stop being grossed out by us. There's plenty of information. If you're actually curious about our surgeries and about our experience, you can listen to us talk about it. You can read doctors talking about it. You can, there's all sorts of information you can get into, and more power to you for being an ally. Like, way to go. We need more of you. But I don't require every single person to put in the same kind of energy that I have to. Are you kidding? That would be a nightmare. That would be a nightmare. Is if everybody else had to also experience what I'm experiencing. This is a rare thing that I'm experiencing. I'm transgender. Like, I have to deal with gender dysphoria. I wouldn't want other people to deal with that. But other people do deal with that. And that's the reality. We just work with reality, please.
Example, on the 6th of January 2023, Beast Reacts uploaded a video titled "I strapped a GoPro to a fish," in which Chris dressed in a way that prompted comments such as, "Chris has been..."
And how do you strap a GoPro to a fish? Like, how big of a fish was that? Wouldn't it fall off?
"Adopting more and more traits that remind me of..."
Okay, and this is even weird. Like, this is so weird to call attention to. What kind of comments are you clipping to put in a video like this? Like, Chris has been like, what?
in a way that prompted comments
It's just a sweater.
as Chris has been adopting more and more traits that remind me of my grandmother. Okay, so some people just gonna ignore Chris's nails.
Like, this is so sad and pathetic that you're stretching this far to getting 72 subscriber 72 subscriber comments as your drama.
Chris had to have lost a bet. The look is getting wild.
Like, this is just like stupid, lame ass comments. They're obviously fine. They're not like anything wrong with the commenters. It's just kind of weird that that's what you have to focus on. You have to focus on just like normal comments. These are just like normal comments on a YouTube video. Like, come on.
Response to the video then prompted countless viral TikToks, such as this one with 700,000 likes, stating how did Chris go from this to this, while others even made the claim that Karl had turned him gay. Now,
yeah, and it's like it's so sad that people like would actually think that someone being gay or being trans is somehow going to make you trans or make you gay. Like, dude, if you're afraid that someone's going to make you gay just by touching you, maybe you are gay. Like, you're the one thinking about it. Like, when did your friend do that? Like, your friend is just gay. Has your friend ever actually come on to you? Or did your friend just feel comfortable with you as a friend? As a friend, like, you're friend zoned. I hate to tell it to you, but your friend that came out to you as gay, probably not into you that way. I know that it's a shock to you, but not everybody's attracted to you. And so if you think that your friend's just going to start coming on to you just because they come out, they would have already come out to you. like, I'm sorry, like, you're friend zoned. Deal with it. You know, and you know, like, this is a whole other topic. This whole idea of people like thinking that the friend zone is somehow this evil thing, is super disrespectful to your friends. Like, what? You think your friends are just chopped liver? Like, come on.
This was pretty ridiculous, as Karl isn't even that feminine, and Chris had come out as bisexual years before he and Karl had even met. The true catalyst for Chris Tyson's feminization instead seemed to have come—
And here's the thing, it's like, there's divorce and stuff like that is an extremely complicated subject. But I do know that it is pretty common for trans people to go through a divorce once you start transitioning. And that's because it's a huge change for everybody. And part of accepting that change is accepting what comes with it. And sometimes your feelings are going to change. You fell in love with a man and you're finding out this person is, transgender and is going to be taking HRT to change their body. And the person is changing in a lot of ways. And you can still be friends with those people, but sometimes you're not going to feel the same kind of sexual feelings towards that person. It's very complicated. And sometimes that's not enough to end a marriage. Sometimes people will stay married even when there's no more physical intimacy involved. That's normal, and it's nobody's business but the married couple. It's not your business. That's them to hold, to cherish and to hold, right? And if they go through a divorce, that's theirs. There's a reason, and it's none of your business unless they choose to share it. And even if they choose to share it, it's still not your business. It's theirs. And so I think it's really important. It's very respectful to just kind of like get outside of yourself for a little bit and try to think about the other people that are involved, and like that it's not all about you. I think a lot of the time people are just like, this is about, it's not about the wife and kid either. It's like, it's about Chris, and that's going to affect his wife and kid. But I don't think it's anybody's business but the people involved. And it's like, people will do this on the internet, of course. This is going to happen. Like, that's the reality. And so when I'm talking about this, it's not like an outrage that it's happening. Obviously, comments like that are going to happen. People are going to get very parasocial, and they're going to start involving themselves. And like I said, here's the main point. This is no different than anything else, especially with famous people. Like, this is no different. This could be literally anything else, and people are going to get parasocial about it. And the only reason is because there's this hypercharged political debate that somehow is a debate over trans rights in many countries. In some countries, you will be put to death if you're trans. So there's literally places that I can never set foot in because it's illegal for me to exist there.
Come from his marriage. In January 2022, Chris would post a photo with his wife to his Instagram, yet after this, the family photo stopped altogether. Fans also
that's so parasocial. Just think about that for a second. The fact that he's going through the guy's Instagram and saying, oh, look, at this point in time, there are family photos, but the photo above it, there's no more family photos. Not the whole family. Like, really? Like, there's only been a couple photos. Are you going to say that, like, there's not... You're going to judge someone's life based on their family photos? Are you serious? How parasocial is that? You know, I feel like this goes well beyond the internet. Okay? People have been doing this forever. And this is where parasocial stems from, okay? And I think it's from family and extended family. With photo albums of their nieces and nephews... saying like, oh, look, in this photo, you can see how happy the family is. Obviously, if you put every single picture into an album where people are smiling, then it's going to give you an unrealistic reflection over what's going on in their lives. Okay? So anytime that there's anything that goes against your imaginary version of what the person is, because all you see are smiling photos. And so when you see the person upset, you're like, well, I've never seen you upset, so you must not actually be upset. And this gaslighting based on something that is not real, which is your interpretation of someone's life through a picture that you saw because someone shared to you a picture in a photo album that happens to be related to you by blood. So you have this parasocial relationship with your actual family. So parasocialism, it's a thing that goes well beyond the internet. It's so freaking ridiculous. It's so toxic. It's so laughable that you would actually like go through somebody's albums and say, well, earlier there was only some photos of the family. And if you look at the later photos, you don't see them.
Photo stopped altogether. Fans also noticed
altogether.
Removed his wedding ring, with the ring's absence.
Oh God, how parasocial can you get, bro? What the hell?
Perfectly.
Oh, but earlier you could tell that, you know, there was only one purple the toenail. There's only one purple nail here. In the other photo, it was all black and one purple. In this one, it seems to be alternating. So what does that actually mean? It probably means that he's actually pansexual and not bisexual.
The very first post in which he'd painted his nails. Chris confirmed the split in a post from March 2023 reading, "For a little over a year now, me and Katie have been separated," with this also confirming that Chris's transformation began as soon as his marriage came to an end.
That's not a confirmation, but that is probably very likely. Like I'm saying, like, you know, you come out to your spouse, that's a big deal. You come out to your family at all. Some people won't come out to their family, and then sometimes people will say that that's very unfair, but it's also, some people will also say it's unfair to just announce that, like one day. It's gonna be a surprise. It's going to be a big deal for the family, but you're gonna get through it because that's what families do. You understand? Like, someone being trans, that's just a reality. You're not going to stop being trans just because someone's uncomfortable with it. And if somebody is so uncomfortable with it, they can just leave. And if they don't want to leave, then they're going to have to, everyone involved is going to have to take it as it comes. Because for me, for example, I had to stop talking to a couple members of my family for a good amount of time, for about 2 years. Because I couldn't handle it. I was like, I know that they might be able to handle it, but I can't handle it. And so I separated myself from them because it was just, I don't know. I imagined, I mean, it just seemed like that was the right decision, was to just, I need to do this on my own. They need some space. I need some space. This is just the reality. Let's just deal with it. And I just dealt with it. And, you know, you just go with it. You know, don't do this thing to yourself where you go back and forth and back and forth. You're on the fence. You're worried about who you're going to upset. You're going to upset somebody. You're trans. You automatically upset someone just for existing. So stop putting that into your equation. It is an important thing for some situations, like, but only in the sense that you need to get yourself to a better situation, and then you could start living your life. Because these are the kind of situations where, like, your life is in danger. If your life is in danger, regardless of what's happening, your number one priority is to get yourself to safety. Okay, and that hopefully can happen very soon. And if it's not going to happen very soon, my heart goes out to you, but that's the outlier. We're talking about the vast majority of people. The vast majority of people are not going to be in a situation where their actual life is going to be threatened. And I think that amount of people, I know that I'm kind of like, you know, I'm on the lucky end of it, but also in a lot of ways I wasn't so lucky. So I do speak from experience. It's going to be really difficult to transition. It's going to affect your life very significantly, and that's because it's a very significant thing, but it has its ups, not just downs. Okay, there's a lot of upsides to being able to transition, and I'm one of the lucky ones, and I can speak for a fact my life is better because of this. And I know some people, they'll look on the, you know, it's just these same parasocial motherfuckers. They'll come in and they'll say like, oh, but look at this clip of you. This is a proof of why your life is bad. Like, you're going to look at something that's like a video of me and not actually the living, breathing me who's telling you that my life is so much better than it was. From my own lived experience, from my own reality that I live in, that you don't live in, that all you've seen of me is what I've presented myself on the internet. And out of all that, you probably only saw like a small second of it. You probably didn't see 100% of it. I know that because only I have seen 100% of my content. Okay. And then, so I have like a bias about it too. So
Chris went from lighting campfires and raising a family with his beautiful wife to now trying to be a wife with his man buns and long nails. As the criticism continued to pile,
like the fact that this person thinks that these kind of comments are going to ruin Mr. Beast's career is absolutely insane. It's actually brain rot. This is why we need to ban TikTok.
Chris announced that he'd be taking a break from social media, and while there was a possibility that Chris would make efforts to return to his former self, he'd rather do the opposite and double down on his feminine image.
And here's the thing, is if Chris was this woman, nobody would have a problem at all. But because Chris just started hormones and is just exploring his gender identity, people are making a big deal out of it because most people think of trans people, they think of him. They don't think of a woman like her. Which I'm assuming she's cisgender. But do you see my point though? She could easily be trans. And I know people are gonna like think like, I don't know, like she's very beautiful. All these people are very attractive. You know, these are attractive men. She's an attractive woman. Chris is an attractive person. But like if he looked like, if Chris looked like her, the internet would have no problem. And if they did, it would be weird because, you know, I know it kind of sucks, but people with passing privilege do a lot better in the woman's world. And that has nothing to do with being, I mean, I guess it has a large part to do with being trans, but that's a misogyny problem and a sexism problem. So, yeah, sorry, honey. It doesn't get so much easier just for being a woman. You know, and you're allowed to say that because you're a woman. Like, even if you identify as a male, the way society sees you is it's functionally the same. So even if you use any pronouns, the fact that you're taking cross hormones, it changes your physical body and it changes your chemical body to make you more of what people would consider socially female, regardless of what they even say and what they might believe. Because even some people will say you will never be a real woman, but that's false because they treat me just like they do every other woman. which they treat me with contempt. They treat me with like, they don't take me seriously. They think I'm crazy just because I have emotions. Does that ring a bell?
Going up to the Kids' Choice Awards looking like this before making the announcement that he'd been doing HRT for approximately 2 months, which according to a quick Google search is the medical process for changing genders.
And it's like kind of funny that he has to point out that it's a quick Google search. It boggles my mind when people are like, oh, I don't know what all the terminology is. I'm new to all this trans stuff. Like, dude, it's been talked about literally on mainstream media, in politics and everything, on the news. Like, people have been talking about trans people like nonstop. And usually it's the people who hate trans people. The only reason that people that otherwise that we have to talk about it is because people are like trying to take away our medication. And like that's the only reason why we have to talk about it. And the only reason why we want like trans representation, because like, hey, by the way, not everybody who's in the if movies are supposed to represent real life in some kind of capacity, well, there's more than just cisgender white heterosexual people that exist in our world. Like, there's also black people. I don't know if you heard about them. There's also gay people and trans people, and there's Jewish people, there's Muslim people, there's Christian people, there's atheist people, there's all sorts of different people of Eastern religions like Buddhism, all that kind of stuff. Can't expect everybody to know what that is. Nobody's trying to take it away from you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what prompted you to say that, but that might not be what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is that most people, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard that trans people are a thing, because we've been around for like thousands of years. HRT, now that is a medical thing. I can understand how somebody might not understand what HRT is. However, the bigger point of people having to say like doubling down, you're proving my point. Actually, you're getting defensive about it. Why are you so defensive? How does religion equate to sexuality? Being transgender isn't sexual in nature. It's gender related. Now, your idea of gender might include sexuality. Plenty of people I have a very close connection with their sexuality as being a part of their gender. And I think cisgender people particularly express this, because you notice how a lot of guys out there specifically will be like, oh, like you got a small dick, or like they might feel hang up over sexual function with their spouse or with their partner. Like they can't get a boner and it makes them feel like less of a man, or their wife gets a bigger paycheck than them. I don't know why this would make them feel like less of a man, but there's people out there who feel less like a man if their wife makes more money than them. Do you understand? Why are you so sure you know what you're talking about? I don't know. What can anyone else do? What can anyone do when you're talking on the internet to a bunch of strangers? I mean, I have to have confidence because I know what I'm talking about because I've experienced it. And when did I back out? I'm literally responding to you right now. I pulled you up on stream. Like, like, what are you talking about? I'm literally having a conversation with you. How is that backing out? It's literally the opposite of backing out.
This would expand on this by stating, informed consent HRT saved my and many others' lives. The hurdles GNC people have to jump through to get
That's some gender non-conforming people. So Chris is a gender non-conforming person. This person, he uses any and all pronouns, or like any pronouns, and he's been using he pronouns for himself. So, he's allowed to be gender non-conforming, just like you're allowed to be cisgender, just like you're allowed to be transgender, like, trans woman or a trans man. You don't have to be gender fluid. You don't have to be trans. You don't have to be cisgender. You don't have to use being cisgender as a central part of your identity. And in the same way, You don't have to use being trans as the central part of your identity. And that's a difficult thing that a lot of us trans people have to deal with, is that being trans, especially in the current political climate, is a very, very, very visible part of ourselves. Brain mold? What are you talking about? What? Like, here, if you want to talk about brain mold, talk about how people literally thought that Elon Musk is like Iron Man, and that they literally like suck his dick anytime he posts anything on Twitter just so they can get some clout. Now that's brain mold.
Life-saving, gender-affirming healthcare in a first world country is wild to me. Just let people make informed decisions about their own bodies, which
and here's the thing: is like this is the reality that we have to live with. That we have to keep repeating very obvious things like this. It's tiresome. That like the trans community and the medical community have to basically just keep calmly explaining to people who are misinformed of the reality of the situation. It's like, hey, I know that you have all these thoughts, but just because you think something doesn't mean it's real. You could think that dinosaurs roam the earth, but they don't. You know, only alligators. The alligator people. You know, they're the ones who are responsible for the water that made the frogs gay.
About their own bodies, which received a positive response from both Karl and mrbeast, who wrote, "Got you, I did one more heart than Karl because I'm a better friend."
Yeah, you know, obviously most of this is just really silly. Like, if this were anything else, if this person didn't come out as trans, this would just be normal tweets that nobody would talk about. But because there's you insert the trans element, suddenly it becomes interesting. Like, no, it's boring. It's just, I mean, it's amazing, but it's boring. It's just friends being happy for another friend. That's all it is. Nobody makes giant videos about this for any other reason. Now, sometimes, like things like cancer, for example, people will have this about cancer or some other medical condition that is going to be a huge life change. Okay? Whether it's a good or a bad, even through the good. Like, even if somebody, like, you know, completely recovers from cancer, they beat cancer or whatever, you know, that's still a very big life change, and it's a good life change, but it's going to change everything forever. And that's one of the few other things that people will put a spotlight on when it's a celebrity. And even if it's your people in your own life, it's still a big deal for everybody in your life. Like, it's basically, it's all over the headlines for like your friends and family. Like, if you're trans or if you get cancer, and I know that's a terrible, terrible comparison, but in the way that it impacts people in your life, I would say it's like 1-to-1. Like, that's like, it's a different kind of impact. It's not like it's cancer. Cancer is like something that's really bad that's going to kill you. Gender dysphoria is really bad and it's going to kill you. But usually people coming out as trans, in spite of all the social as bad as the social realities of coming out as trans are, it's still a net positive. Like, it's a good experience. Unless you happen to be one of the very, very unlucky people, which is a very small amount of people, but they're very important people, okay? And they matter.
While his co-workers expressed positivity, others weren't so welcoming. There goes a father figure the kid won't ever be able to look up to.
And that's just so weird that people are making it about every other person but the person involved. How it's mrbeast's problem that a friend is trans. How it's the kid doesn't have a father. Like, okay, well that's a weird fucking take. Like, what about parents? What about kids who don't have a father at all? They end up being okay. Like, why do you need a father figure? There's going to be a father figure regardless, because there's going to be some kind of male in your life or father figure. In fact, it doesn't have to be a male. Why can't you just have a figure in your life? Why is it so important whether it's a mother or a father? Like like you can have two dads, you can have two moms, you can have one mom, you can have one dad, you could have a mom and a dad, you could have neither a mom or a dad. You're still going to have people in your life that that have helped raise you, that have helped you understand who you are, that have helped you kind of like figure it out for yourself. So who you are, because that happens to everyone, and it happens different as you get older. And then the whole argument against trans healthcare is that, oh, shouldn't we just wait and see? That's what we are already doing. That's why medicine is what it is. And there are very specific guidelines that even I would have to Google to tell you. But there's very specific guidelines for youth that take that into account. And so that's already happening. They're already looking at the situation in a very realistic way to make sure that children don't make a mistake. But here's the huge mistake, is that other people say, oh, well, then shouldn't we just let kids be kids? By forcing a transgender child to not have their thoughts validated, to not even talk about it, to not even transition in whatever way the child feels comfortable that aligns with the medical standards, like that causes significant more harm. And it's already been proven, and the numbers speak for themselves. You know, that this, you know, the self-harm rate is significantly higher in transgender youth who do not get an affirming reality, who don't have family who's helpful in affirming. You know, there's guidelines for a reason. It's because they're looking out for children. It's not just the child who's making the decision. If it were up to the child would probably not even transition at all in most of the time. That's why puberty blockers are a compromise. And a child might not know about puberty blockers. A child might only understand that they're very confused and they have no idea what's going on. They heard some people talk about being trans, and that maybe they're like, oh, well, that sounds really scary. I can't possibly be trans, because it's easier to not be trans. And so in your own head, you're going to be trying to make millions of excuses to avoid being trans. And this is going to happen. It's not going to be like, oh, cool, I'm trans, yay. Like, yeah, I mean, it's good, but the realities of being trans are so fucked up that nobody would ever go into transgender medicine without having already gone through this situation, this thought process, and without a licensed professional is present who goes through medical guidelines that are established over, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of patients. Here's the thing, is that we've done that already. We have the data on that already. Shouldn't they be instructed to wait until their brain was fully developed? There's a lot of things we do with children that we don't wait for their brain to be fully developed. For example, we teach children that you should say please and thank you at the dinner table. They don't fully understand what that means. And if you do that incorrectly, you can give your kids some really fucked up understanding of reality. And I know it sounds weird, but imagine being forced to say please and thank you in a way that's very violent. Like, we're going to take away something that you like your toy or whatever, if you don't say please and thank you. And then you don't even understand why you're saying please and thank you. You're just being forced to say please and thank you. You're not even like, you don't even understand like why, like, oh, it's because it's nice and you know, you want other people to feel like, wouldn't you feel upset if somebody just, you know, took something without asking, and then they you know, or you know, or you help somebody and then they just, you know, they're acting rude to you or whatever? Wouldn't that make you feel sad or whatever? And then maybe you start to understand like, okay, I say please and thank you because that person, you know, took the time to help me, and I should recognize that. And saying please and thank you are ways of respecting other people. And you know, once you understand that, like, it takes a little bit of time. And for children, that's why we have puberty blockers, is because if we do force them to wait and see, you're forcing a different decision on them. You're forcing the decision to go through one puberty. And what puberty blockers do is they pause that, so you can wait longer until your brain is more fully developed, so that you can make a better decision for the rest of your life, because transitioning medically, even the somewhat reversible ones, are still not 100% reversible. So, you know, and there's also a lot of psychological toll that it takes. These are all very true. These are realities. And what I'm trying to tell people who don't understand the things that they're concerned about, we're concerned about too. We've been here for longer than you have. You're just getting to the conversation. We've been here all along. Okay? And even I'm somewhat new to the conversation, and I'm trans myself. So strap yourself in. Welcome to the conversation. You're not new.
Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
Now, that's just some actual psychosis. Like this whole, that's like incel culture.
Weak man times. Chris responded to this comment by stating, "This is just more dog whistling that somehow trans and GNC folks aren't safe around kids. Tucker begs for me to come back when I leave for like 2 days to film. He is so loved and happy. Kids aren't born with hate, it's taught by people like you, and my child will only know love."
And you know the thing about the thing about videos like this, and obviously, you know, Sunny V2, I wouldn't say he's like a terrible YouTuber, but like he does what he does. He's a drama farmer. I don't really have any reason to hate him or anything. But he tries to take a stance basically where, I mean, he looks like he's pointing towards transphobia, but at the same time, he's also in the center enough that he's just presenting information from a journalistic standpoint that you could also argue that he's showing the good side of it, which is like, hey, look how normally, like how a sane person would respond. You know, you see these weird Twitter incels saying like weak man times, like weak men create bad, like, our, you know, we need strong men only, and like it's so weird. Like it's so freaking psychotic. And then, like, you know, a normal sane person would look at comments like that and be like, what the hell is that? And then look at Chris's comment and says like, oh yeah, you know, that seems like a pretty reasonable person. Maybe these trans people aren't as crazy as I thought they were. Because once you start comparing the crazy to the normal, and this isn't even one of the crazier ones, the weak man times one, you know, but like if you compare something that's a little bit schizo compared to like a normal conversation, you know, I like what Asmund said about this.
I mean, to be fair, I'm sure the kid's going to get made fun of a lot in school because of it. It sucks, but I don't think that means that Chris shouldn't do what's best for him. You know, he should definitely do that. At the end of the day, you know, like, he's doing the best he can for his kid, but he's also got to live his own life and do what he has to do and be who he has to be, right? I think that's fair. Truth is that, yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, like, the hard times create, you know, fucking strong men. Like, yeah, I think there's, like, some truth to that, but I don't really think this is necessarily an example of it. Especially with, like, if you contextualize Chris coming out about transitioning, Chris never even said anything about it until it went super viral on Twitter. It's not like he really made a big announcement about this, because before that he was like, hey, I'm just changing who I am, etc. And I think that's kind of that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, just being a person. I mean, that's really all there is to it. Like, this is just a normal part of being human. And I feel like that's what's big about this happening, is that it's big because it shouldn't be big. This should just be a normal conversation that people thumbs up on Twitter and then move on. And that's where we're trying to go. But right now, the fact that it happens, people have to make it into this big drama. But however, that is the first step. Because in order for something to be not drama, it has to first be labeled as drama, and then people can see how ridiculous it is to think that it's drama. And then people start realizing, like, like, maybe there's other things I'm wrong about. And then they start going through that process of figuring things out. And this is what happens with people who have a trans person in their life. And it takes a while. It's very uncomfortable, but it happens.
I think that the way to treat people like that is to just treat them the same. Like, I don't know, like, I'm sure it's awkward and weird for, like, you know, Mr. Beast and all of them, like, to have a friend that's going through something like that. I'm sure it's confusing. It's very complicated. It's the same as, like, you've probably had friends that have gone through, like, really big, like, personal changes like that, and it's probably really hard to deal with. Sure, and I think that this is probably the same thing. Again, it's not, doesn't mean that Chris is wrong. It's just that that's what happens. And yeah, PTSD. Yeah, PTSD is a good example of that. And overall, like, I don't really think it's that big of a surprise that, you know, it could make people uncomfortable, or people might have a hard time adapting to it or whatever. But, I mean, you've got to remember, like, yeah, they work together, everything like that, but he's their friend. And so they're probably going to try to support their friend.
Yeah, I mean, like, how else can you deal with it? Like, just say, hey, we're happy for you. This is kind of difficult, but we're going to deal with it because it's not your fault. So if it's going to be difficult, it's difficult because it's difficult for you, which means this is not a me problem. This is a you problem. You see how it works?
That's what really matters. Chat's imploding in a civil war. Well, there's a lot of people, you have to keep in mind that there's a lot of people that are in, like, Western culture have, like, such a Western-centric mindset for this that I don't...
And, you know, here's the thing, is like, there's going to be people who hate trans people no matter what. And to act like that's not the case is pretty delusional. We should live in a world where trans people are accepted, but you have to accept that there will be people who, no matter how much hormones you are on, no matter how many surgeries you have, no matter how much you pass as your gender, there will always be people who will never accept you for who you are, and just fuck them. They're losers. They're actual losers. And if you don't get it by now, go look at a few of them and tell me that those people are happy. If you can find one person who's like that, who is happy, I don't know, I'll give you a milkshake or something.
I don't think they realize that in many places in the world, I don't know about most places, I'm not sure, but in many places in the world, you're not able to be trans. Like, most places in the world, as far as I know, I don't think have a positive view of trans people.
Yeah, and it's really fucked up, you know, but it's just the reality. Anyway.
I know I'm going to be a great parent, and so is every other person who puts the love of their child before everything. I made this decision because I wanted to show up as my best and happiest self for him. In a way, this was for Tucker. Chris's response received some positivity, such as, "I'm convinced you're an amazing father. Tucker is lucky to have you and also lucky to have all of those who surround and support you in his life, as well as I adore that. I'm glad you made that decision. It's so much easier to be a parental figure when you're not struggling."
Hey, thanks for the follow, Hakeem.
With dysphoria, yet he'd also receive an equal amount of backlash. You ripped apart your family and took a father figure away from your son just so you could paint your nails and act zesty. Pathetic.
That's such a freaking weird comment. Especially, it's a weird comment that you have to go into YouTube, because you're always going to find comments like this, like on Twitter and on YouTube. There's always going to be comments that you can find, and obviously if you zoom in on those comments and you show them to try to paint a narrative, like, this looks like you're really stretching. Like, it looks like you're really stretching. Because when you look for drama, like, you're going to find it.
He will get torn apart at school, won't want to have friends around his house. A life
Yeah, and this is the argument that transphobes will use. I'm going to bully you if you're trans, so that's why you shouldn't be trans. Like, what? You're the one causing the problem that I should be afraid of? So instead of you stopping being a bully, I have to stop being myself because you're going to bully? Like it's ridiculous. Like, why are the victims being blamed? Like, you're blaming the people who can't help being trans, and you know, like oh well, you know, you shouldn't transition because you're gonna make your son's life worse because your son's gonna get bullied, so that's why you shouldn't be trans.
Of difference and being alone. Must have missed the point in that tweet.
Hey Hakeem, how's it going? We're just doing some React content.
How's this for him when you're depriving him of a father figure? Although Chris wasn't altered by these comments, as he'd once again.
Yeah, and like for pretty much what I can tell about the situation, like Chris never really made a big deal out of this, and it looks like, you know, for the most part, it's just a picture of a human being being happy. Has nothing, like, didn't bring gender into the situation until he announced that he was been on HRT, which is a big deal because at some point it's going to get pretty obvious. Like, you start growing breasts, okay? Like, people are going to notice.
Reiterate his certainty in a new post reading.
So, you know, starting HRT, it gives you a bit of time before you basically have to socially transition. At some point, you're going to socially transition whether you want to or not, you know, because it's just going to be pretty hard to hide. And if you do, you know, I know that some people do hide it. That's their choice. I am a girl, yes.
It's never too late to start being yourself, which received praise from MrBeast as well as Nolan and Karl. However, these comments also added extra fuel to the fire.
Okay, this is true because no matter what you say on the internet, someone's going to respond to it. Someone's going to have a problem with it. Even if it's MrBeast cured 1,000 people of blindness, of curable blindness, of cataract surgery. Like, the guy got hate for curing blindness. So obviously he's going to have hate for having a transgender friend. So like, you can't please anybody on the internet, it seems. You could literally be donating to like charities, you could be curing blindness, giving money to starving children, buying dogs homes, but because it's the internet, someone's gonna get mad about it, no matter how positive it is. You could be curing cancer and donating millions of dollars to a children's hospital and like saving a person's life, like and like smiling at a puppy. Okay, like, and someone's gonna have a problem with it. So it's just like, it's just so weird that this is even considered drama.
Few years look back at this thread and remember they were never your friends. Only yes men cowards. Hope you come out of this safe. MrBeast responded to this with a simple opinion irrelevant ratio, to which the original commenter would state, I have 30 followers, so go ahead and ratio me. I'll still rest easy knowing that I'm not a coward who idly sits by watching my friend ruin his own life.
And that's such a stupid opinion. Like, how could you possibly think that someone is ruining their life by doing something that makes them who they are? Like something that you have obviously taken thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours of contemplation and research and understand, just like, you know, you can't do anything else except live your own life. And if you have gender dysphoria and you need a treatment, you get the treatment. It's going to have the side effects because it's a big change. But, you know, it shouldn't be treated the way it is, but it is. It shouldn't be treated as this huge, like, weird thing. It's only weird to people that make it weird. And the fact that you would think that you're ruining your life by doing it, you have no idea. Why don't you ask the people who are actually going through it? That when the people who are going through it are telling you that their life is just fine and they're just fine and they're happy and this is the best thing that ever happened to them, maybe you should believe them instead of trying to convince them why they're wrong. That you're going after comments like this to show your point from like a 30 follower Twitter user, and like that's somehow something that we should take seriously. The only reason it got views is because Mr. Beast gave it a ratio.
In some ways, it was nice to see the boys standing up for Chris on Twitter. However, the situation has already begun to...
And then judging things by likes is ridiculous. Those people only hit that dislike button because they don't like trans people. Has nothing to do with Mr. Beast, has nothing to do with Chris. It's just because people don't like trans people. They see it as some kind of woke agenda, and so they just dislike everything. And little do they know, by hitting the dislike button, you're helping the video and the algorithm
change the dynamic within the videos. For example, in a recent live stream titled Opening 1,000 Mystery Art Boxes, Chris would once again dress in quite a feminine way, and while everybody participated...
And I'm going to tell you right now, going to situations after coming out to family and friends where you're going to be interacting with those family and friends after you've come out as trans is the most awkward thing that you will probably ever experience. But guess what? Who cares? It happens. And then it's over. And then it's not awkward every single time. It gets easier. Because you realize that this is just the reality. This is the person I know. This is the person I love. This is who they are. If I have a problem with it, it's not their fault. And once you start realizing this inside of yourself, your whole life, I think, will change. So everybody around you transitions with you. And I've noticed changes in my friends and family. And it's not even, you know, it is what it is.
I think that a lot of times people interpret an interaction between two individuals on stream the way they want to. Like, for example, I remember whenever I would do streams with Izzy, and I would have comments like, wow, they are so great together. This is so natural. It's so great. And then other people that are like micro-analyzing, look how whenever he moves towards her, she moves her hand away. She wouldn't do that if she was attracted to him. She's in it for the clout. I knew it. Uh-huh. Yep, just another one, boys. Man. Just like my ex-girlfriend, huh? So, yeah. How's that a relevant comparison? The reason why it's a relevant comparison is because people go into the video with Mr. Beast with a negative opinion of what Chris did, a negative opinion of Chris's transition, and they go into the video with a negative opinion of how his friends are going to interpret that transition. So they're going into it with that bias in mind. And whenever all you have is a hammer, a lot of things look like nails.
Yeah, so it's a lot of confirmation bias. That people are going to look for the things that they find awkward, that they're going to look for the things that they disagree with, and they're going to notice them, and it's going to confirm their belief. And so they're looking for it. You know, like if all you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. So if you see stuff in a video that says like, oh, look how awkward it is, it's because this person is trans, therefore being trans is bad. Like, obviously, if you're trying to manipulate the math to point towards the answer that you want, you're always going to find you're always going to find what to assign the variables. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you're going to confirm your own statement by looking for things that confirm it. And if all you do is look for things that confirm it, it's obviously going to confirm it.
As usual, the energy and vibe didn't feel nearly as smooth as it normally does. It felt as though there was an unaddressed elephant in the room, and therefore everybody...
And a lot of this is just editing. Like, you're going to find the most awkward parts of the interaction. I'm going to be real with you. Just from seeing these few clips, it looks really uncomfortable. That's because it is. It's because it is. Deal with it. It's not Chris's fault for being trans. It's not Jimmy's fault, you know, Mr. Beast's. It's not Mr. Beast's fault for having a friend that's trans. It's not Chris's fault for existing. And it's also not Mr. Beast's fault for just trying to move forward and not making a big deal out of it. As much as you not want it, it's like there's a big elephant in the room, okay? Everybody knows that this person came out as trans. Nobody knows how to interact in this new dynamic. So everyone has to go through a transition period of like, okay, how's life going to be post Chris transitioning? And that's going to be a thing.
Everybody was in their head as opposed to being in the present moment enjoying each other's company. Maybe everybody was simply too busy opening packages. But
I'm going to be real with you. If I was wearing that, I'd feel very I because of the, the abdomen exposure, I'd feel a little bit awkward. But I'm not going to judge how Chris feels, wearing his clothes, certain situations I might lean towards she, her pronouns, but she doesn't care. She stated any pronouns.
Chris did make these bizarre jokes about Jimmy being female, making him incredibly uncomfortable.
Oh my God, Jimmy, look, they drew you. Jimmy, they drew you so well.
And these are the kind of jokes that if this happened before transition, nobody would be talking about this at all. And I think maybe Chris is trying to just keep things like, I feel like when you're going through this transition with people, you go through a stage where you're just trying to get things back to normal. And you just try to act like everything's normal. And then as soon as you say it, I'm not going to like put words in her mouth, but like as soon as she said that, I almost feel that she regretted saying it. Like, oh shit, people are going to interpret that as, oh God, but now you've already said it and you have to commit to it. It's fine. You don't have to commit to anything. You don't have to double down on things just because you think that your audience is going to think you're weak. Like just take yourself out, take what your audience is going to think out of the equation for the most part when it comes to life-saving healthcare and life-saving social decisions. And as much as it's difficult, there's going to be people that are no longer friends with you. There are going to be people who don't want to talk to you anymore. People who would surprise you on both ends of the spectrum. There's going to be people who support you that you thought would never in a million years support you. People who are like, oh, I thought that person was like a churchgoer. I never thought that person would be accepting of trans people. And then you have like a person that you were like close friends with that suddenly this was a deal breaker for them. And that's heartbreaking. And it more so than the fact that they just, said that in the first place. But the fact that this person sees this as like a personal attack on them. They're like, oh, sorry, like I can't be friends with a trans person. Why would you do that to me? Like those kind of people, like that's disappointing to know that like the person and that's another transition. Like you thought you knew that person as a friend and all it took was one difference in who you were for them to disapprove of you. And that's pretty sad that like you thought like your friendship wasn't what you thought it was. Like if that's all it took to end a friendship, was that really a friendship? It's kind of disappointing. Like when it's kind of one-sided. Like if you care about someone like that and then suddenly they stop caring about you just because you come out as being trans, it's kind of disappointing. I mean, it's pretty fucking disappointing. But you move on. It's just how it is. It's how life is, no matter what. But this is obviously, especially as an adult. I think with children, I think it's easier for kids. I don't want to put words in their mouths, but from what I understand, like since you're still establishing your identity, it's going to be easier for people to accept you for you are because they haven't known you for like 30 years. Whereas when you were my age when I transitioned, I was 31 years old. And so most people in my life, except a few people who only knew me as Rebecca, most people in my life knew me as a different person, as a different gender, looking different, acting different, feeling different, like literally like physically feeling different, having a different vibe about me entirely because I presented as masculine. And then for them to like adjust is going to be a lot more difficult than if you just like, hey, rip off the Band-Aid before puberty and then just pick your own puberty based on the one that aligns most with you. And there is obviously a doctor present in that kind of situation. There's doctors present when it's an adult, and even adults have a hard time transitioning. It's really fucking hard. It's really fucking hard for everyone. But life goes on. You get used to it, and you get a new normal, and life feels good again. Because it feels better, because now you're living authentically. Doesn't even matter what other people think.
It looks just like you.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God, it's Jimmy.
How did fan art?
Oh my God, it's Jimmy. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure she didn't really mean it. And I don't know. Maybe this was planned to make it awkward. I don't know. You never know with content creators. But it feels like she's just trying to it feels like she's just trying to like make jokes like as usual, and it feels different. And I'm sure she recognizes that. I don't know.
This is what we were looking for. Be brave, be honest, be kind, Mr. Beast. That is my tagline.
Becoming even weirder when each member started to pay each other compliments.
Hey, nice shirt. Thanks, dude. Nice shirt.
Hey, nice shirt.
Thanks, dude. Nice shirt.
Thanks. Nice shirt.
Nice shoes.
For the most part, the live stream was devoid of awkward
Now, apparently, I don't know if there's like a running joke. Do they say like nice cock or something? Nice shoes, nice shirt. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like transitioning has helped me understand a lot of nuance about gender that goes beyond being trans. That just people in general are very weird when it comes to gender. Like, this goes way beyond trans people. Like, this goes to cisgender people mostly, I think. Like, cisgender people and the way the culture is, whether you're trans or not, because even as a trans woman, I'm still a woman, which means that I'm existing in a world that has been socialized a certain way. And if you're a woman, you're going to be socialized differently. If you're a trans woman, that's also different. If you're a cisgender man, that's different. Like, everything's going to be different. And it's a huge adjustment. And this is what people are seeing in real time. Or at least in quasi real time, because obviously it's the content creators, Mr. Beast and his friends. So it's gonna be publicized in a different way than it would for most people. I think this is really good. I think this is good medicine for people who otherwise don't experience what it's like to transition, like have a family member or a friend transition, which I haven't. I've been the transitioning person. There was a person in my life, but I wasn't really a part of that person's life. So, and people in my life have experienced that before, but they haven't experienced it with me. And when it was me, if they're closer to me, I felt like it was a big deal for them. And it was definitely a big deal for me. It takes time, but it does pass. And you could either be a dick and just double down on refusing to accept change, or you could just deal with it, let things be awkward until it's not. It's only awkward if you make it awkward.
moments. However, it would act as fodder for another 100 million views worth of drama and criticism. Chris likely believes that people will slowly adapt to his new appearance over time, but is this really going to happen?
Of course it's going to happen. Everyone's just going to be like, oh, okay, cool, it's Chris. Trans person. Okay, cool. Now what? That's basically all it is.
Well, maybe. It's difficult to say as the situation is fairly unique, especially when considering Chris's reputation and influence. However, if Chris continues to transition, would it be unreasonable to say that he could jeopardize some of the personality traits which made him a successful member in the first place? Perhaps the opposite will happen, and he'll instead pick up new personality traits that better resonate with the current MrBeast audience. This was put forward in many comments supportive of...
And the fact that you're even thinking about, like, I mean, obviously this is a big content creator, but I feel like this is a lot of projection. Like, it's a lot of projection over the insecurities people have and how much identity they attach their content to themselves. Because you'll see, like, people like YouTubers, their whole life is defined on how much views they get. Like, I don't think MrBeast has any hangups like that. And if he does, I don't think he has anything to worry about. He's the #1 YouTuber. So if that is the case, he's fine. He's the number one. Like, why would he care? But I don't really think that, I don't know him, but I'm assuming that he's a normal human being who doesn't attach his identity to his view count. Or, you know, like, I don't think his view count is what makes him or his friends decide what will be best for his life. Just like Chris transitioning, I don't think his career was a huge part of the equation. And obviously it's a part of the equation because it's a part of your life. And there's a million things that are going to be affected by transitioning. Everything in your life will be affected. That's just the nature of it. So I don't know why people just make such a big deal out of it.
Chris, who implied that there'll be millions of queer kids who look up to him, although this doesn't
Yeah, and it's like trying to look for a reason why that wouldn't be true is absolutely psychotic. There's obviously, this is huge for queer kids.
necessarily mean that it'll add any value to the video.
This is huge. Like, this is like a game changer. I actually feel like this is probably better than, like, and obviously all the, like, legislation, like, the people fighting against it. I think this might do more for voters to vote against Republican, like, anti-trans legislation than literally any other endeavor. This might be the number one thing that helps trans people. I'm not holding my breath. Okay, we got to fight. We got a war on our hands. Okay, this is. I've been trans for a long time, and I've seen how the world is. I'm not going to give up hope, but I'm also not going to just, think that any kind of one thing like this is going to be a huge victory. It obviously is a victory for trans people, knowing that someone as huge and visible as mrbeast has a very openly trans person in his video content, like as part of his content team. So, like, that's huge, and the way he's responding to it is huge. Is that it should just not be a big deal at all. It should be normal. This isn't something that should be like a big drama.
mrbeast has likely cultivated a massive LGBT audience, all of whom are already watching anyway, and if we've learned anything from Hollywood in recent years, it's that adding over-the-top LGBT characters for the sake of relatability rarely works as intended, and is...
This isn't a Hollywood movie. They didn't decide for Chris to be trans because we need a transgender cast member. Are you kidding me? These are real people with real lives. They just happen to be content creators. This isn't like part of the content. I mean, it is content because they integrate their lives into their content. Because they're content creators. That's a huge part of their identity. I don't think it's the only part of their identity. But it's going to be a thing. It's not a cast change. Like,
is often nothing more than a distraction from the premise of the movie or video. On top of this, it can be uncomfortable and unrelatable for the silent majority, although as we have seen, a situation like Chris's does have the potential to create an otherworldly amount of discussion, which could be seen as a benefit for the mrbeast brand.
Drama is good for growth, 100%. That would be an easy...
That he's equating it to drama. Like, it's just so weird that Sunny V2 is like looking at this in the point of view of how it'll impact content. Not even for the person involved, but for mrbeast, who's going to be just fine. And this, if anything, this is going to help him. But there's obviously going to be plenty of people who are just like not about it anymore. People literally stopped buying Bud Light because there was a single ad campaign on a single Instagram post by a transgender content creator. For like one sponsor, Kid Rock took a freaking AR-15 and fired at a bunch of Bud Light cans. Talk about overreacting. Like, Jesus Christ. Are you so angry at trans people that even a trans person getting an advertisement sponsorship is going to make you angry? Like, it's kind of weird. Like, are you okay, bro?
Easy way to up my
So
beast
you're
if
a
I got it,
Keemstar
bro.
The problem is this type of situation is probably the last thing that Mr. Beast wants to attract.
Oh, here
as
we
he's
go. Some real journalism by Ben Dover.
forced to agree with Chris's position, as he has no way of manipulating the situation without being painted as the
I mean, obviously, like people are projecting their own insecurities and how they would react, or maybe they might be trans themselves and they're afraid that, well, people are going to react this way, and you know that's a huge part of it. A lot of the things that scared me from preventing that prevented me from transitioning, from starting HRT and from starting to socially transition, and from starting the path towards surgeries that for so long, was that I saw how people reacted, and I didn't like it, and I was afraid because I didn't think I'd be strong enough to deal with it. I didn't think it would stop. I didn't think it would get better. And obviously it does. And I think a lot of that is just you kind of separate the people in your life. You separate the good people from the bad people. And it's just the reality of life. Like, that's just how it happens.
bad guy. It's a lose-lose situation for Mr. Beast. I think Jimmy is in an inescapable situation. If he kicks out Chris, cancelled. If he don't, his channel will die for real. And
That's a stupid take. Why would kicking out a friend help your channel at all? Unless it was like something really bad. Like, this is not something really bad. This is something just really positive and like life-changing in a good way for Jimmy's friend. But like the fact that anybody would think that like this was the same as like with the whole like OTK and Rich Campbell situation, for example, that people would compare it to that. Like, obviously, if someone was your friend and you found out they did a terrible thing like that, that's going to hurt. But you're going to have to, like, you know, remove that friend from your group, you know? That person's not a friend anymore. They betrayed you, you know? Like, hey, what's up, Afimas? We're just doing some video react.
an inescapable situation is a pretty good way of describing the drama, which is also why it deserves the harsh label of being a nightmare. Jimmy has no option but to publicly express acceptance of Chris's transition, as silence or even worse, disapproval.
What do people want? Like, do they want him to be weirded out? Do they want him to be like transphobic? It's like they're dying for something to be drama about this. And this is just no different than any other drama chasing Twitter user and all that, or YouTube commenter. Like that people are just, they want there to be a controversy. They want to find out, like, oh, I wish Mr. Beast would say this thing so that I can so that I could write an article about it. Like, oh, Mr. Beast said a transphobic thing to his friend, or they're wanting some kind of crazy backlash somehow. They want Chris to like scream and shout and act like a crazy person because they think trans people are crazy, and they want every trans person to always act crazy because then it's easier for them to hate us. Because they'll say like, oh, look, that's super cringe or super weird. Look at how angry that person is. That's obviously gender affirming care, obviously good. Like they find like one instance of somebody having like a panic attack or like a meltdown, might even be unrelated to gender related things. You know, I know this firsthand. But you know, they see something that's like you at your worst. And then they make all these suppositions about who you are as a person and like why you did that. They psychoanalyze it. They think they know everything. You literally know nothing. Like, sometimes the curtains are just blue.
Come with obvious severe repercussions. However, in accepting Chris's transition, Jimmy implies that this will be the new normal within the content, thus annoying a different group of people, many of whom will never express their true feelings and may rather simply click on fewer Mr. Beast videos. If this is the case, Jimmy has no option but to accept this fate.
I mean, what else are you gonna do? Be a dumbass, like, asshole to your friend? Like, it looks like they're very good friends. Like, why would anything change besides the fact that now we have to adjust to this? But that's something that we're doing together. Because as friends, you go through this kind of stuff together. That's what friends do. Yeah, they're childhood friends. And you know what? Mr. Beast could have done the asshole thing. And honestly, he would have every right to. If he were to be an asshole and like say, I don't want this person in my life anymore, it's going to ruin my channel. That's going to piss off people too for a good reason, because that's a shitty thing to do. But he would have every right to do it, of course. And he could have done that, and he didn't. So to me, that says I think Mr. Beast is a pretty good friend. You know, because it would be so easy to just not deal with it. It'd be so easy. It's so much easier to not be trans. It's so much easier to not hang out with a trans person. It's so much easier. And there's so much more benefits to it as in your career. And it's so easy that most people take that route to either just be indifferent or to ignore or to even hate on trans people. It's helpful for your career to not include trans people. But I think what Mr. Beast is trying to do is he's trying to show people that you should not be afraid of losing a few viewers just to do the right thing. Doing the right thing should be more important than getting more clicks on your video. And I think that's what he's trying to say. I mean, obviously, this is just the nature of it. This is the nature of the beast. Yeah, no matter what he does, because he literally like paid for 1,000 people's surgery to get rid of cataracts, to cure their blindness, and people still gave him hate for that. So at that point, it's GG. Like, you may as well just do whatever the fuck you want and not care about the people who think that you're a terrible person, because you know that you're doing good. Why would you need anybody who thinks otherwise? Like, why would you respect their opinion at all? Why would you need them at all? They're nothing.
Removing Chris from the videos in any kind of way could create an even more severe media firestorm. The only clean solution, should things go south, might be for Chris to resign himself, and even then rumors—
Why would he do this? There's no reason. Obviously, if that were the case, he would have done that a lot quieter. He would have just like not even mentioned it. He probably wouldn't have been in videos at all. If that were the case, if Chris wanted to be stealth about this and not make it in public eyes, it would have been a lot different. Because there was the announcement, even though it wasn't this like crazy huge announcement, it was just kind of a quiet announcement. And because they're responding, the people involved are all responding to the social media backlash this way, it should tell you already right from the gates that this is a very public intention, that they are not going to back down from this, because this is their friend going through HRT, going through whatever gender-related transition this is. They're there because they're his friend. Okay, they're going to be there for their friend regardless. That's what this is about.
And bad press will be unavoidable. Whether it be arrogance or ignorance, Chris seems oblivious to how this whole thing might impact Jimmy, forgetting that he achieved his current level of success by avoiding this exact type of drama.
Well, for drama, it's not drama. It's only drama to the people who think it's drama. I liked what Asmongold said on a few of those. This is the third one I kind of picked. He obviously, this whole video, he talks about a lot of stuff, but I saw the VOD and I thought he had some really good things to say.
Yeah, because and I feel like anybody would feel that way. To have a bunch of people that don't know you, that have never met you, that also, I bet in a big sense, like are massively less successful than you, try to tell you, the most subscribed YouTuber, this is what you need to do. Yeah, I bet it would probably piss me off too if I was in his position. Absolutely, it's fucking annoying. Let's see here. We're gonna stop dumping on Chris, let them live their life. I mean, why people care so much? I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons. It's very complex. I think like there's a lot of social reasons. You have to remember, again, you see this amount of negative feedback and stuff like this because it's on the internet, and the internet is a global platform. And inside of a global platform, guess what happens? You have a ton of people who are part of cultures that actively do not like and do not accept trans people. So guess what happens? Those people come into my chat. They come into this video. They come into, any of these things, and they have their opinion on it.
Yeah, so that's also a thing. Like, I think people need to like also cut some content creators like a little bit of slack, because a lot of people will jump on people like Asman, and sometimes he does have some kind of like questionable takes, but sometimes he really does know what he's talking about, and he'll say some things that like, yeah, like I totally agree with what he just said. That he said, it's a reality. Is like there's going to be people who never accept you for who you are. There's going to be people who hate you, and that's okay. It's not okay. It shouldn't be the case, but it is. There's going to be people who hate you just for being trans, because there's entire countries where it's illegal to be trans, punishable by death. Okay, so obviously, if you go on a global platform, there's going to be people who hate it. There's going to be people who hate you just for existing. However, fuck those people. They don't matter. They shouldn't matter. In fact, the only way to move past it is to just ignore them. Protect ourselves from them. But also, like, don't give them so much power over you. You see like 1,000 positive comments, and then you see one transphobic comment, and suddenly, obviously, the human nature is to see that one negative comment, be like, oh my god, the world's a terrible place, look at all these transphobic people. It's like, yeah, those people are transphobic, but look at the people who aren't. Look at the people who love you. Look at the people who have been there in your life through this, and helped you through this. Helped you get to where you are. Those people are the ones who matter. And as far as career goes, I don't think this is going to hurt either of their careers. I think they're going to do just fine, if not better, because now Chris is living his authentic self. Mr. Beast is being a good friend. Everything's going to just play out however it plays out. It's going to be a little bit awkward, but that's just how life is. Everyone's going to get over it, and they're going to find something new to complain about. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon so you can see as soon as I upload my next video. Bye bye.